Ravens fans entered the 2025 season with a certain excitement in the air. You could feel it. The buzz wasn't just about Lamar Jackson's continued evolution or Derrick Henry's arrival. It was also about a young spark plug in Keaton Mitchell. Everyone wanted to see him back on the field, healthy, dangerous, and explosive. But week 1 came and went, and Mitchell? Inactive. And then came the gut punch from John Harbaugh. It wasn't just that he was left off the game day roster. It was the tone, the explanation, the vibe that, well, Mitchell just might not be part of the plan this year. And let's be honest, that's not sitting well with a lot of people, and maybe, just maybe, it shouldn't be sitting well with the Ravens themselves. When Harbaugh addressed the media, he laid it out plainly. You just can't get everybody up on game day. And sure, that's true. The roster limits are what they are. But when you look deeper into his words, when you really listen, you hear something else. Hesitation. Uncertainty. A lack of belief in what Mitchell can bring outside of a few designer plays and some contributions on special teams. Harbaugh even admitted that in order to get Mitchell on the field, you'd have to take Derrick Henry or Justice Hill off. And in his eyes, that's just not something the team is willing to do. But here's the thing, why not? Mitchell isn't just some gadget guy. He's not just a break glass in case of emergency player. This is a guy who, before his injury last season, was averaging more yards per touch than almost anyone else in the league. The moment he touched the ball, you held your breath. He had that kind of electricity, that kind of rare gear most backs simply don't have. And it's not just fans who noticed. Players, analysts, people who understand how valuable a player like that can be in the modern NFL, they're all asking the same question. Where's the role for Mitchell? Now, Justice Hill deserves credit. He's come back strong, he's protecting better, he's producing in the pass game, and he's earned his place. Derrick Henry? I mean, come on. That's a future Hall of Famer. No one's saying to bench him. But here's where it gets frustrating. If Mitchell can be a game changer in just 4 or 5 snaps, why not give him those 4 or 5 snaps? Why not see what he can do with the limited touches you can give him? And that brings us back to Harbaugh's overall game management. That's the elephant in the room, and it has been for a while now. Year after year, we see a recurring theme, questionable decisions in high-leverage situations, whether it's going for 2, defensive substitutions, timeouts, or overall roster usage. There's always a moment where you're left scratching your head, wondering, what was that? And it happened again in week 1. Against the Bills, the Ravens had control. They had a solid lead. But once again, they blew it. And this isn't just a one-off. Since 1991, no team has blown more double-digit second-half leads than the Baltimore Ravens under John Harbaugh. 17 of them. Let that sink in. 17. And yet, when asked about it, Harbaugh's first instinct was to deflect, to talk about how often they've had those leads in the first place. Maybe part of it is the fact that we've been ahead a lot, he said. That's not the answer fans wanted or needed, because it doesn't matter how often you're ahead if you can't finish. There's a pattern here, and it's undeniable. You can't keep calling these flukes or bad luck or isolated incidents. It's happening too often. And while Harbaugh eventually got around to acknowledging that the team needs to approach those situations differently, the damage was done. The fan base felt it. You could hear the frustration online, on sports talk shows, even from former players. Chris Carter didn't hold back. He said Harbaugh has been absent on the sideline for the last 4 or 5 years. That's not a small critique. That's a serious accusation from someone who's been in those locker rooms and knows what leadership looks like. And maybe he's got a point. Because in those key moments, it's not just the offense or defense failing. It's the structure, the preparation, the execution. And when the same mistakes keep happening, that points to something bigger than just missed tackles or dropped passes. It points to culture, to accountability, to coaching. And that brings us full circle. Because when a guy like Keaton Mitchell can't find his way onto the field, even for a few plays, it raises questions. Are the Ravens really putting their most explosive players in position to win? Are they too comfortable with status quo decisions? Too hesitant to take calculated risks? We saw it on that final drive. The Ravens had a chance to ice the game. And instead of making Lamar Jackson a threat, instead of keeping the Bills guessing, they got conservative. They pulled back, played it safe, and it cost them. Again, the same way it has so many times before. What made the Week 1 collapse even worse wasn't just the blown lead or the conservative play calling. It was the fact that this entire offseason had been built around one central theme: urgency. Players were vocal about it. Coaches were vocal about it. We heard the same line again and again. This team is tired of coming up short. Tired of watching the same movie in January. They wanted to turn the page. And for a while, it felt like they had. New faces, new staff additions, a revamped offense built to maximize Lamar's talent, and a defense that was supposed to get nastier, faster, more physical. But in the first test of the season, all those promises faded. In the biggest moments, the Ravens didn't rise, they retreated. And while we can talk all day about play calling and clock management, the truth is the problems go even deeper. It's about identity. That used to be the Ravens' calling card. Defense with an edge. Offense with a plan. Now, that identity feels blurred. When you ask fans what this team stands for, what they hang their hat on, you get hesitation. Are they a run-first team? A spread team? A defensive juggernaut? An explosive offense? It's not clear. And in a league where identity matters, especially late in games, that's a problem. Take the defensive side of the ball. Once upon a time, that was the Ravens' domain. You didn't question it. You knew they were going to hit you, confuse you, and close out games. Now, the numbers tell a different story. Since 2021, Baltimore has lost 8 games where their win probability was at 90% or higher. 8. That's 3 more than the next closest team. That's not just a red flag. It's a billboard flashing something's wrong. And again, this isn't about one mistake. It's not about one busted coverage or one failed blitz. It's about patterns, habits, culture. When that many close games slip through your fingers, something deeper is at play. And at some point, the coaching staff has to answer for it. John Harbaugh has been a staple in Baltimore. He's a Super Bowl champion, a leader with a proven track record. But even legends need to adapt. Because in today's NFL, you can't live off your resume. Every season is a new battle. And right now, the Ravens look like a team still fighting ghosts from seasons past. The blown leads, the questionable decisions, the inability to finish. These aren't isolated incidents anymore, they're trends. Even more frustrating is the personnel usage. Harbaugh talked about numbers, about roster math, about who gets up on game day. But when you've got a guy like Keaton Mitchell, one of the fastest, most explosive players on your team, just sitting on the sideline, it feels like a wasted opportunity. And look, no one's saying he needs to get 20 touches. But this league is all about mismatches, about speed, about unpredictability. And if Mitchell can give you that, even for a few snaps, why not use him? And that's where the disconnect is happening, between what this team says they want to be and what they're actually doing. You can't talk about being aggressive, dynamic, and forward-thinking, then turn around and handcuff your most dynamic playmakers when the game is on the line. Even in the media world, former players are seeing it. Ryan Clark, Marcus Spears, Jason Kelce, they're all pointing to the same thing. The Ravens aren't putting the game in the hands of their best players when it counts. They aren't maximizing Lamar Jackson. They aren't riding Derrick Henry like the monster he can be. They're pulling back, playing it safe, and in the process, giving teams like Buffalo the exact opening they need to come back and steal games. Let's talk about that 4th down decision. 4th and 3, the game on the line. Lamar Jackson just took a hit that rattled the stadium. Was it cramps? Was it the aftershock of one of the hardest hits of his career? Either way, the moment was massive. And what did Baltimore do? They punted, gave the ball back to Josh Allen and the Bills with too much time on the clock. You could feel the outcome before it happened. Another game that slipped away. Another moment that will sting all season long. The missed opportunities don't stop there. Look at the defense. Where's the killer instinct? Where's the leadership? Players like Roquan Smith, once the anchor of that unit, looked to step off. Marlon Humphrey? Out of sync. And suddenly, you've got questions at every level. On the field, on the sideline, and in the locker room. Questions about accountability. About who's stepping up. About who's demanding more. That's where coaching has to set the tone. Harbaugh talks a lot about leadership, about culture. But when your team consistently falls apart in the 4th quarter, that's not a player issue. It's an organizational one. It means the messaging isn't landing. The standards aren't being enforced. And that mindset of, we'll get him next week, just isn't good enough anymore. Not for a team that says it's in win-now mode. That's the most painful part. This team has the talent. Lamar looks locked in. Derrick Henry, despite the fumble, was running with purpose. Zay Flowers is emerging as a real weapon. The pieces are there, but pieces without a plan, that's just noise. The Ravens need to rediscover who they are. Not just what they say they are, but what they show every Sunday. Because until they fix the habits that are killing them late in games, nothing changes. And it won't matter how good the roster looks on paper or how explosive the offense can be in spurts. September losses don't seem to matter in September, but they absolutely do come December. Every win you let slip away now might cost you home field later. Might cost you a division title. Might be the difference between playing in Baltimore or going on the road in the playoffs. And if we've learned anything, it's that those margins matter more than ever. And that brings us to week 2. Because now, the Ravens aren't just fighting to get back to 1-1. They're fighting to quiet the noise, to prove to themselves and to everyone watching that week 1 wasn't the start of another frustrating ride. The Browns are coming, and they're not the team you want to face when you're questioning your toughness. That defense is built to punish. That pass rush, it doesn't let up. And if the Ravens bring the same energy, or lack thereof, that they brought in the second half against Buffalo, it could get ugly fast. But this is also a chance to respond, a chance to make a statement, to show that the mindset has actually shifted, that all the talk about finishing, about accountability, about urgency, it wasn't just off-season fluff. Because if they go out there and lay another egg, especially at home, it's not just a loss. It's a red flag. It's a sign that nothing's really changed, that the same patterns are alive and well in Baltimore. And this fan base, they've seen it before. They've been here. The excitement, the potential, the belief, and then the disappointment. Over and over again. They're not just asking for wins. They're asking for growth, for some sign that this team has learned from its past and is ready to finally put it behind them. And that starts with coaching. John Harbaugh doesn't need to be perfect. No coaches, but he does need to be present, aggressive, willing to trust his stars in the biggest moments. Because if you're not going to trust Lamar Jackson to get you 3 yards, then why is he even your quarterback? If you're not going to use Keaton Mitchell's speed as a weapon, then why keep him on the roster? If you're not going to push your coordinators to think bigger, bolder, smarter, then what's the plan? Baltimore doesn't need more speeches. They need results. They need a game where the Ravens take control and keep it, where the offense doesn't go conservative, where the defense actually slams the door shut instead of slowly watching it get kicked in, where coaching decisions reflect confidence, not fear. This is a team that still has everything in front of them. But windows close fast in the NFL. And if they want to keep theirs open, it starts now. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. The NFL rumor mill never sleeps, and this week it has turned its spotlight toward Kansas City. A supposed offhand remark from the Chiefs head coach about the Baltimore Ravens has ignited a storm of reactions, leaving fans and analysts buzzing with speculation. According to whispers circling locker rooms and media corridors, the Chiefs boss did not hold back when asked about Baltimore's recent performances, allegedly calling the Ravens overrated and suggesting that their style of play doesn't belong in the modern game. While no official transcript has surfaced, the story has taken a life of its own. Social media lit up within minutes, with Ravens supporters flooding timelines in outrage. Some dismissed it as mind games ahead of a potential playoff clash, while others took it as a sign of deeper disrespect brewing between two of the AFC's biggest contenders. Rivalries have always been part of football, but when a coach reportedly aims verbal shots at another franchise, the conversation transcends the field. In Baltimore, fans are treating the alleged slight as bulletin board material. Local radio stations debated the matter endlessly, with callers demanding a response not just from the Ravens staff, but from the players themselves. "You don't talk about our team like that and get away with it," one fan shouted during a call-in segment. In Kansas City, however, the reaction has been mixed. Some supporters believe their coach is simply playing psychological chess, while others worry the remarks could provide dangerous motivation for a rival. NFL insiders point out that the timing of this controversy is especially curious. With the season heating up and playoff positioning at stake, every word carries more weight. Whether the coach truly intended to slight the Ravens or whether his comments were exaggerated in retelling, the effect is undeniable. Tension between the two franchises has reached a fever pitch. For now, it remains in the realm of rumor. Yet in the NFL, perception often matters as much as reality. If the Chiefs and Ravens meet again under the bright lights, this week's chatter will resurface, echoing in every tackle, every pass, every roar from the crowd. And should the Ravens come out on top, Baltimore fans will be quick to remind Kansas City that sometimes words can come back to haunt you. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.